Welcome to SalinaRadio.com, recorded right here in Celina, Texas, a quiet little dusty, sleepy town that has absolutely nothing going on. Guys, I am so totally kidding about that. Of course, this is Celina, Texas, and we have everything going on here. Now, I'm Ron Lyons. This is SalinaRadio.com, and we intend to have a good time. So put on your seatbelt, and let's get started. Hey guys, I am Ron Lyons. This is SalinaRadio.com, and we are coming to you from the great city of Celina, Texas. Today we've got another interview with one of the candidates running for Celina City Council. And today is Tony Griggs' turn in the hot seat. Tony was kind enough to sit down with us at Lucy's on the Square and to answer questions that will provide a little more perspective of who Tony is behind the scenes. Not just the stuff you see on the postcards and on the websites and the Facebook page and stuff like that, but just a little bit more about who the person is behind the candidate. So let's get straight to it, guys. Here is my interview with Tony Griggs. All right, guys, I am here with Tony Griggs. Tony was kind enough to come into Lucy's restaurant and sit down with me today and share a little bit of kind of the behind the scenes of Tony Griggs. And Tony, tell me this. Do you come to Lucy's often?
I do. Several times a week. I'm here at Lucy's for sure.
Give me an idea. What is your favorite thing on the Lucy's menu?
You know, my favorite thing on the menu has got to be the chicken fried chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, and the fried okra.
I think that's maybe the one thing on the menu that I've never tried. Now, I'm a big, huge fan of their chicken fried steak. I've never had the chicken fried chicken, so I'm going to give it a try. Have you had the Punk's meatloaf? Have you tried that?
I have had the Punk's meatloaf, and it is very good as well.
Absolutely. And of course, Lucy's is known for their desserts, for their pies, and I'm not even going to get into that. I'm going to call that personal information because I may give away a little too much of what I like in that case. And as you can tell, I'm not exactly missing many meals right now. But tell me this, Tony, how are you? How's things going?
You know, I've been staying very busy lately with the campaign going on. It's a good kind of busy. I'm getting to meet a lot of new people and really enjoying getting out and visiting with the people in the community.
So tell me this, election day is still coming up. We're actually in early voting right now. That started Monday, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, when is election day?
So early voting will continue through May 3rd, and then that election day is May the 7th.
Okay, so we're right on the heels of that. And we're not going to get today into all of the platform stuff and, you know, perspectives and stuff like that. We know that all of that's already out there. If people want to see that, you've probably got Facebook page, you've got, you know, any number of different things that are out there. But let's cover that. If somebody did want to go and find out more about your platform or your perspectives and stuff, how would you like them to reach out to you? What can they find out there?
You know, there's several ways that they can see what my message is all about or to contact me. My Facebook page is probably one of the best sources to find the information, and that is just facebook.com/Tony Griggs for Celina City Council, Place 6. And also, there's been two sources that have published a voter's guide where they have asked the same questions for all the candidates running. I would suggest also looking at vote411.org and put your address in. It'll give you a sample ballot with people that you could possibly be voting for. And also the Celina Record has published a list of questions from all the candidates, and that'll give you a good idea of information.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for that. And today we're going to have a little fun. We're going to ask questions. Now, if you've listened to any of the other episodes, you probably have a pretty good idea of what I might ask you, but I like to change things up just a little bit. So you might get a variation of the same question that somebody else got, and that's totally fine. The idea here is to give us just a little bit of insight into the real Tony, the person behind the campaign stuff. So before we get into that, tell me this. How long have you been in Celina?
So I first came to Celina in 2010 when I came to work with the Celina Police Department. In 2016, my family and I moved here to Celina.
Okay, so you and I share something in common, law enforcement. And we also share something else in common now, real estate. And so I'm going to ask you a question that I haven't asked anyone else because they couldn't answer it. But which is crazier, the real estate market now or law enforcement?
You know, the real estate market is doing some really unusual things that we haven't seen here in the past. But law enforcement nationally has really taken some turns that are not in the best interest of the public now.
And I agree with that. So what I'm going to do, the thing that I always ask is that win, lose, or draw, however the election turns out, I would love for you, as everyone else that I've interviewed, to come back on the show and let's talk about something that we couldn't really talk about on the show. And in this case, I'd love to talk to you about law enforcement, the current status of law enforcement, what it takes to be an officer today. Would you be willing to come back at some time in the future and talk about law enforcement?
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite subjects, having served as chief of police here in Celina. I have a lot of interest in that area, so I'd love to do that.
Okay, then I think we'll certainly done, and I love that. I've actually had such an interest in law enforcement ever since. I still write for Law Enforcement Magazine. I've owned some law enforcement related businesses and stuff, but none of that's what we're here for. Now we're going to get down to the serious stuff now. Okay, the really serious stuff, and I mean even more serious than the fried chicken. Favorite subject back in school?
You know, my favorite subject, now I'm talking about into college now. I think, back when I was in high school, I was interested in some of the business type courses. But my favorite subject in college dealt with leadership and management.
Wow, that's very interesting. So if my favorite subject was PE or recess, am I at a disadvantage now? I think I don't answer that. I think I am. All right, let's talk about this. Celina obviously is amazing. We all have a passion for Celina. We all care about it. That's why we do what we do. But if you could live anywhere else in the world right now, let's just pretend Celina doesn't exist. Where would Tony Griggs live?
You know, if Celina didn't exist, I'm definitely going to be here in the state of Texas. And there's probably a number of places that I might choose here to live in Texas. Prior to moving to Celina, I lived in McKinney and, lived there for a number of years and really enjoy the, McKinney community as well.
So you might actually stay local. You're not going to take off to like Italy or something like that. You're going to be right here, basically close to home.
Absolutely. I'm going to stay right here.
I like it. That means you're well invested in this community, in this area, and that sort of thing. And let's talk about that real quick on a slightly more serious note. Celina's growing like crazy. What do you think about all the growth?
You know, it's Celina is in the growth corridor, as we know. And, for many decades, we've watched the growth follow north on Preston Road and the Dallas North Tollway. And the growth, I think we have to balance. And a lot of times I talk about with community harmony. And we have to look for managing that growth properly and what's going to be advantages for the people that live here. We don't want to put disadvantages on the people that live here because of the growth. So what benefits will it bring? If we manage it properly, I think we can look for those benefits.
Okay, I like that. Give me an idea. Now, and this is where I'm testing those ninja police skills and candidate skills. I'm going to see how quickly you can change directions on me. If you had to write a book about yourself tomorrow, you have to write a book about yourself. What's the title of the book?
leading policing in the 21st century.
I like it. Look at that. That's a well thought out answer. And for the record, I didn't give you any of these questions in advance. This is 100% off the cuff. You could have just now said Mickey Mouse and something else. Literally, you're unprepared for these questions. Am I right?
You're correct.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to another really, really fun question. If somebody was going to explain what kind of person you were back in school, how would they describe Tony Griggs? Let's just take it to high school. What kind of high school guy was Tony Griggs?
In high school, I was probably a little unusual for that age of a student. My brother and I started a business when I was 16 years old. And during time at school, I actually carried a briefcase. So you can imagine how that looked. And the law enforcement side of me was there then as well. So as far as following rules and people knew that. But it was a little unusual to see, the high school student with the briefcase. But we ran a manufacturing company that dealt with wood products that my brother and I started. And, I was just maybe a little bit more on that professional side then.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Tell me this, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self right now and give yourself some advice or tell yourself something based on what you know right now, what would you say to yourself?
I think when you're 18, you think you have some goals, but I would probably say think your goals out better and really look to what you're going to have to accomplish to get there. And, set some goals for education and pursue those. And just keep in mind that things will work out and just keep pursuing your goals.
If you could take someone in history and sit down over a cup of coffee, you can go right over here to Summer Moon and have anybody from history around the world, not just this country, but anyone from history to sit down with, who would you like to sit down with and share a cup of coffee?
I think what comes to mind is Ronald Reagan. And I've always admired Ronald Reagan. During my military career, I was honored to guard President Reagan when he came to Osan Air Base in Korea. And I actually got to be part of his guard detail again with the Irving Police Department. But I always admired him. He was a great American statesman. And I think just a great communicator. Everybody was pulled into him.
I want to ask you this just because, again, something that you can answer that maybe a lot of, well, not maybe, I don't think anyone else I've talked to could answer, but if you had somebody right now, one of these young people interested in getting into law enforcement right now, what would be your advice to somebody thinking about getting into law enforcement right now?
So, a lot of times what we hear now with the current environment, it's just something that a lot of times they're not interested in getting into. And I think, and what I've told a lot of them in the past is you can handle this job. You just have to be trained correctly and have the right attitude about it. So pay attention to your training. Learn well. The training will never stop. When you're going through field training in those areas, just pay attention. And it's leadership of the departments have to have the responsibility now to train these officers differently. There has to be more things in the way they train and their procedures and the policies to make sure that we keep them safe.
So I've always been a believer that every 10 years, we as people go through a significant change. So right now I'm 53 years old. The 53-year-old version of me is somewhat different than the 43 than the 33, and certainly the 33 than the 23, and the 23 than the 13. And I think that cities, departments, everything changes with time. So would you say right now that somebody coming into law enforcement, that it's definitely a different place than it was 10 years ago?
It absolutely is. And, everybody has seen a lot of the things that take place. You're seeing it on the news. you're seeing some areas of the country where the police are not respected. They have nobody there that's looking out for their interests or backing them up throughout the government entities that they're involved with. And that really takes away from their ability to do their job and their motivation and desire to stay with those departments. Those things didn't exist to that extent 10 years ago.
Absolutely. And tell me this, if it's true that basically every decade or so, everything changes, what does Celina look like in 10 years?
When I was chief of police, we did a lot of planning and research and training. I had a sergeant that somebody asked him, what is policing going to look like 5-10 years down the road? And he said he thought about it, and he said it's going to look like the Celina Police Department. And I think we were far advanced in some of the things that we were doing that were preparing the department and the officers for the future.
And give me an idea, what are we missing in Celina right now? Like, what do we need? And I'm thinking in terms of like a business or a, maybe some sort of a facility or anything along those lines. What are we missing right now in Celina?
I think what people like the most are the places that we create where they can have entertainment. So where we have Lucy's and Tinder, we have the Celina Star restaurant. I think people would like to see maybe a little bit more variety of these type restaurants and establishments, just to give them more to do here locally. If you come down on the square almost any time at night, everything here is packed and there's waiting lines. So we have room to expand those kind of businesses, and the people would enjoy that.
So tell me this, and a little pivot here. What is Tony Griggs' biggest pet peeve?
I think I like to have things organized and planning. So when I see things that are taking place that maybe weren't well thought out, weren't planned, and the different options that could happen haven't been fully looked at, those kind of things bother me.
Well, I would like to sit here and say that I agree with you on that, and I live my life that way. That's really not exactly the case. My life is pretty much organized chaos, and I just hope and aspire to one day to be more well planned and organized and stuff like that. But that's a down the road thing for me right now. Right now, I'm just living in chaos. But tell me this. I'm going to pop a few real quick questions at you, something I haven't done with anyone else yet. And they're probably one-word answers, but then I may ask you to expand on it a little bit, okay? Favorite color?
Red.
Okay, why red?
When I think of red, it brings me to the flag, and combined with blue. So the red, white, and blue, and that's kind of how I associate red.
Nice. And favorite number?
I'm going to have to say 31.
Okay, significance of 31.
So when I was with the Irving Police Department, I worked at a department store at Irving Mall, part-time security, and security's number was 31. That's where I met my wife.
Well, all right, you just literally scored some big points. So there's a good man for you right there. That's you're done. Now when your wife listens, that's going to be that's it right there. And all the women out there are going to be like, okay, I like this. Tell me this, favorite movie?
A favorite movie, unfortunately, I don't have the time to watch a lot of movies, but one that the family gets together and we watch every year is the It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed, I believe. We all love that movie.
So is that kind of like a Christmas or holiday tradition for you? Is that what that is?
It is. We look forward to that, every Christmas.
If you had a choice between being a well-known actor or a well-known singer, which do you become?
I think I would become a well-known singer because I think that's where I lack the most ability. So that would be interesting.
Okay. So are you a fan of karaoke? Do you ever come to Lucy's and do the karaoke thing?
So I come to Lucy's and watch the karaoke, but I probably am not going to get up and do it.
Well, if you ever do decide to do that, definitely shoot me a text first. I'm gonna get a front row seat so that I can watch that, and that's just, because I'm the same way. I would absolutely. I think I may have attempted karaoke once, but I may have been slightly under the influence of something at the time, and that was probably 30 years ago. And I don't think it's happened since, and I don't think it will. So tell me this. Do you have any hobbies? Anything that you love to do?
So, hobbies, I do a lot of yard work, and I enjoy doing it myself and taking care of the plants and those. It's very relaxing to get out and do that. That's one of my hobbies. I do have several, collections that I spend some time with, but not that much time, with collections like stamps and coins and different antiques, things like that.
Would you say you're a fan of history?
Oh, absolutely. I believe, I've always enjoyed history. We have to understand the past and learn from the past.
I like that. And tell me this, if you had your choice right now and you could do anything else in your life besides what you're doing for a job, what would another profession be for you?
If it was something completely different, I think I would enjoy teaching on the college level.
That would be very, very interesting. I would certainly take your class. I would come to it because I think folks like you who have had a lot of positions in life and experienced things, especially in law enforcement, since I'm such a fan, you have a lot of wisdom to impart, and I think that that's good. But anyways, why Celina? What do you love? What are your thoughts about Celina? Tell me.
So when you think about Celina, it's the people here. And when I came here in 2010 as a police officer, as you probably know, there were no backup. You were often by yourself on shift. I was never really worried that if I got into trouble, people here would come assist me. And, to meet the people here that really formed the history, just really great people. And the generosity of the people in Celina is unbelievable. As police chief, we sponsored things like Blue Santa. You wouldn't believe the number of times that a citizen would stop by and say, here's a check for $5,000. I just want you to give it out to people in need for me. I want to remain anonymous. And it's unbelievable. So it's the people here that you really enjoy that make the community.
Absolutely. And Tony, again, thank you, sir, so much for coming on the show. I know everyone's time is critically, squeezed right now with everything going on, and it's valuable. So much respect, and thank you for doing this. And two things. One, I'm going to expect you to come back on the show. And two, I'm going to push you. I may even form a political action committee to see if we can get you required to come sing karaoke at Lucy's, okay? So let's just, we're planning on two things, okay?
I'm going to have to practice a little bit, but we'll work on that.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, guys, that is Tony Griggs. And Tony, thank you so very much for coming and doing the interview, sitting in Lucy's and kind of going through all of our questions. It certainly helps people understand a little bit more about the person behind the candidate. And a big, huge thank you to Lucy's on the Square. They have been absolutely fantastic in this entire process. They've let me set up shop a few times in there and probably entertain the people who were eating at the same time, but doing the podcast, set up in the back, and it's just been fantastic. Lucy's is definitely one of my favorite places to go, and I would encourage anybody visiting Celina, Texas, to stop by Lucy's on the Square and see what it's all about. It's kind of the epitome of small town Texas. It's perfect if you want to get a flavor of Celina. So guys, that's one more interview done. I've got another one coming up with a school board candidate, and then I'm not 100% sure about two more candidates that may not actually come on the show, and that's totally fine. Like I said, much respect. But to those who have been on the show, Thank you so very much. And to you, the listener, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. If you would do us a huge favor, share this on your social media. Tell your friends about it at celinaradio.com. And as soon as this little election cycle is over, we're back to business as usual, bringing you everything that is amazing about Celina, Texas. But anyways, guys, as usual, God bless, and I'll see you on the next show.